Okay, that should be everyone.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'll do an official welcome to everyone. This is our workshop for today's session. It's all about working with your local library, and it's being hosted by the team at Spot On and Creative Arts East. So we have Sue, Karen, Lindsay and Julia. So I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Jess. Hi everyone. Thanks very much for coming along to this session today. There's been loads of great sessions already about working with libraries, and it's really good to be able to have something where we hope you can all start talking to each other from different from different perspectives as to how to get it to work in libraries. Creative Arts East have been sort of on and off touring into libraries for over 10 years. And more recently, we've been doing a Southeast inquiry into library services to find out about their relationship with touring arts, how they feel about it. We had a fab reference group and people really involved and engaged in telling us how they felt about it. We've also more recently been working with Libraries Connected to develop an online learning module specifically for libraries to support them with anything they might need to know with getting live events mainly, but also any other touring arts events into their spaces. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Julia from Creative Arts East, who led our touring inquiry.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia. First, today we have a short video to share with you that we put together as part of our libraries touring inquiry. And it's of a show called Origin of Species by the touring company Tangram Theatre. And it's being performed in a really small library in Norfolk. So it's a great example, I think, of how a show can be put on in the tiniest of spaces and still leave the audience having a really memorable, authentic and really enjoyable time. So Karen, I think you're going to share the video for me.
Hopefully this will work, fingers crossed.
So the whole idea of live performance in libraries is sort of part of our cultural offer. We know that people don't always go to theatres, and libraries are a perfect place because they're sort of safe places, neutral spaces that people feel comfortable coming into anyway, and so we want to give the opportunity for people to come in and see some really quality live performance. So that's our aim, and we also know that it makes a big impact on people's sort of well-being, and just gives them an opportunity to have a good time. That's what we're hoping that's going to happen tonight. This is the Heathersett Library's first promotional event as a Creative Arts East promoter, and we're putting on Origin of Species, which we're really excited about. This is one of a number of shows that we've been hosting in libraries, and this is Heathersett's first. A number of people who are part of Heathersett's Friends have been interested in putting on shows, so we're hoping that this will be one of many.
Events like this in my library are important because it brings the community together, and it's just so lovely that it can be used for other events. It's great.
It's such a lovely atmosphere for me really to be entering their space, transforming it into a different sort of world and giving them an experience that they might not have expected.
The way he connected with the audience, it was just marvellous. I absolutely loved it.
So the whole of live performance in libraries is sort of part of our cultural offer. We know that people don't always go to theatres, and
Okay, I think that's a really lovely example of a touring show with fairly minimal tech, literally being put on between the bookshelves, and everyone just having a really fantastic time. Yes, so I think Sue now has some images to share.
I do indeed. So let's hope this all works. I'm going to pick on, just bear 1 minute, just change the screen so you don't suddenly see all my emails. That would be slightly awkward moment. Here, share screen. So what I've got is about, hopefully you can see this. It's 1 minute 50 of slides that are going to go through automatically, which are libraries in Lancashire and the examples of types of shows we've put on. And I've put this together because some of the questions that have come from participants are, what kind of work can you tour into a library? And is my library the right size, or do I have anything special that I need to do in order to have a show in the library? So hopefully as these pictures go through, those questions will be answered and we can carry on that conversation later. I will just quickly say what they are. So if you want a bit more audio description later on from me, I'm more than happy to do that and send that through to anyone who wants it. So this should be a seamless little presentation of libraries in Lancashire. And we'll just let it load up and off we go. We'll do bingo. This is our last show before lockdown. Truck stop honeymoon. Librarians, look, laughing, having fun and having coffee. Ladies at Bus, another lovely library. Gav's in the room. We'll talk to Gav about that work. So you can get close up, you can have sets, you can have Murray Lachlan young and children. You can bring your babies to our shows. We can have digital art launched in a library. And librarians, of course, do the presenting and the talking. We're sold out. Look at that, sold out show in a library. And that's a lovely CETA brand. Lots of different residencies that we've done, children's work. Canadian clog dancers in a library. Librarians serve the tea, and we give platforms to local talent as well. Children and families, always active and very welcome in all our shows. You can see there's different lighting. More Canadians, this is in the Harrison Preston. Even more Canadians, we can talk about that too if you like. There's our banner, there's Gav again. The lovely Ruth Coburn from Blackpool, sorry. And this was Ryan Cook at Longton Library. And again, more costumes and more audiences close up. A little bit of tech, how we can squeeze things into there. This is a clapper box. Handers Hen, I'm going to get this wrong now. All at Sea in another library. More families being involved in entertaining. These are all different shapes and sizes. Commissioning, Sophia Hatfield, the lovely Burnley Library, and more children's shows. We can do outdoor shows and installations as well. 9 Buddhist monks in the smallest library in Lancashire. Who knew that was possible? Excellent Handers Hen performing here, family shows. A librarian going about his job while the show's going on. We've worked in mobile libraries as well, Lizzie and Macmillan. And here is our audience smiling and waving at you all. So that was a quick whistle-stop through what Lancashire's libraries look like when we put on spot-on shows there. And I shall stop share.
Great, thank you, Sue. Yeah, I think hopefully that demonstrated that no matter how much space you have or how many sort of facilities you think you have, that it's always possible to have some sort of live performance in a library, and hopefully by sort of working with rural touring schemes who are used to working with unusual spaces, we can help you find something that will work really, really well. There was a comment earlier about, you know, sort of pricing structures and things like that in library, and I want to briefly touch on that and just say that because there's this perception that, you know, an experience in a library is not as good as going to a theatre. It's a different experience, but I would argue that there are just as many positives about going to a library, because people are familiar with the space, they feel comfortable, and they're sharing it with other people they know and trust, and that could be more important than, you know, your fancy curtains and, you know, and the other surroundings. What we're going to do now is put you all into 3 breakout rooms, and each of the facilitators is going to join you in one of those rooms. What we really want to do is encourage artists, schemes and libraries to start having a conversation together. So our prompt is the question, who are our audiences and why would they come to see events in a library? What we'd like to do is just chat about that for around half an hour, We'll nominate someone to make some notes and feed back to everyone at the end of the session. So we shall do that now, as soon as the tech allows us to. I think it's magical. We just have to wait. Is it
Hey, yeah, it's Ellen from the Tech Forum. I'm just about to press the button for you, so you will be automatically taken there via Zoom. Just give me 2 seconds to make sure I've got everyone in a room, and off we go.
Teleportation commences.
Video persistence, that's absolutely fine. I just want to check before I launch into this. Okay, so you can chat to me if I don't know if people have had a lot of experience in breakout rooms. It's a little bit like, you know, when I was a kid, my mum would send me to a play date with someone my same age, and you'd sit there in a room with them and they'd expect you to get on and talk to each other and be friends. And sometimes it can feel a bit like that when we're suddenly here, 9 people all staring at each other going, oh, what have they got? Oh, what's that paintwork? Oh, look, bookshelf, isn't that interesting? So if you don't want to say anything, or you want to stay off camera, or you want to stay silent, or you just want to chat, and get work and find out how they can extend what they do. We have librarians who've been in touch with us wanting them to know technical questions. We have touring schemes who want to know things, and hopefully you are all now in the room with me. So the first thing I'm going to ask, and I'm going to try and do this because I can't say everyone, is if you just briefly could each take it in turn, just saying who you are, roughly where in the country you are, because it's nice to know, and why you're here, what's your thing. And literally I'm talking about 10-15 seconds each while we go through all of that. So I hope that's okay. I'm Sue, I'm the director of Spot on Lancashire. I chaired a libraries panel this morning, so you've heard plenty from me. And I'm going to go left and ask Joe from Sonia Sarbury Company to just briefly say hello, if that's okay.
Hi everyone, so my name's Jo and I'm Sonia's producer. And you may have seen that Sonia's show, Same But Different, was the showcase earlier today. So I'm currently reshuffling the tour that we were supposed to have, and really waiting to find out how that's looking for next year. We have already 2 or 3 libraries as part of that tour, but we're also looking to extend the touring if we can into another season and apply for some Arts Council support to tour to more libraries. So yeah.
Thank you, Jo. So I'm now just going to work through my list of participants this easy way. So below me and to the left, I've got Gav Cross. Gav, are you okay to say hello?
Hello, I'm Gav. I'm a storyteller, and today I am Father Christmas. Don't ask. And I very much enjoyed the last couple of years of performing more in libraries, which is new to me. I'm an emerging artist.
Thank you for emerging, Gav. That's lovely. So I'm going to go down and to my right and say hello to Lucy. Lucy, are you okay to introduce yourself?
Is that me?
That's you, Lucy. Yes.
Sorry, I don't know if there's 2. There's always 2 Lucys.
There's a Lucy H. So I'm guessing you're Lucy H.
Yes, yeah, that's me. Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm blind and I work on embedding access within performances for blind and visually impaired, and I'm just working on a children's performance which combines access for both blind and deaf. It was meant to be site specific, but we've had to adapt it a bit. So yeah.
Thank you, Lucy. So
and I'm in Birmingham, if that's helpful. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
Fantastic.
I'm in Liverpool, sorry.
I'm in the Midlands too, sorry, I forgot that bit.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we did try and get some regionalities so that when we're all allowed out, in whichever tier we're allowed out into, you could even meet each other or do something, which would be really nice. So going down my list, I've got Lindsay. Could you quickly say hello, please, Lindsay?
Hello, I'm Lindsay Wilson. I am programmer for Spot On. So Sue and I have met once or twice before. I'm based in Preston at this moment in time. And yeah, I spend a lot of my day talking to librarians and artists and trying to put the two things together.
Thank you, Lindsay. So Peter G.
Peter Gregory from I work at the Welsh Arts Council, but I run the Night Out scheme in Wales. Just before lockdown, we were just about to start a libraries project with lots of libraries across Wales, but unfortunately now it's happening.
That's fine. Thank you, Peter. Claire Drury. Is Claire? Yes, you're there, Claire. Hello.
Hello, I'm Claire. I'm the arts manager at East Riding of Yorkshire Council. I have only recently joined, and in my previous role I was a producer at an arts organisation that would tour art, like book and tour art projects around community venues in Hull, in kind of urban version of rural touring. And now in my role at the council, I'm trying to work with the libraries to set up the libraries as venues and potentially as rural touring venues. So I'm kind of new to the library side of stuff.
That's great. Thank you, Claire. And then we have Heather Askew.
Hello, I'm Heather. I'm General Manager for Highlights. So we're based up in Cumbria, but we also cover Northumberland and County Durham rural touring scheme. We haven't done any work with libraries yet, so we're interested in how that might work and how we might get started with that.
That's great. Thank you, Heather. Karen Crook.
Hi, yeah, I'm Karen. I'm from Cheshire East Library Service. I'm a specialist librarian with them. I'm in Congleton at the moment. It was a sunny Congleton, now it's raining. We have had live performances in some of our locations, not all our libraries. Mainly through the Cheshire Rural Touring Network, but also individuals and local companies as well.
That's great. Thank you very much, Karen. And I believe I have a Tracy Meredith. Tracy, do you want to say hello at the moment? Are you there?
Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. So my name is Tracy Meredith, Community Arts Officer at Staffordshire Libraries and Arts Service. I was part of an arts service before, but we kind of was a gallery in arts development, but it sort of got restructured out. And then my post has been moved over to libraries, so I'm now kind of the arts bod within the library service. We've got about 43 libraries across Staffordshire, and over half of them now are managed libraries. So I'm kind of interested how we can support them to be able to have, performances in their venues. We have, in the past we've had sort of lots of things happening in some of our main libraries, but it would be nice to explore or be able to explore how maybe the community managed libraries can become promoters. And just sort of, I'm quite new to libraries, so I'm kind of acting a bit in between really, artists and libraries, and just interested in who we can work with to.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a challenge we've been set. We're all strangers thrown in the room. I do know some of you. If because I can't see everyone, you feel that I'm not talking to you or feeling a little bit lost or excluded, raise your hand. Hopefully we'll find you and we'll bring you back in. So we've been set a challenge, and the challenge is, who are our audiences and why would they come to see events in the library? And at the end of this discussion, we're going to need someone to just feed back what we discussed to a plenary. So unless you put your hand up and volunteer, I will pick on someone who I'm sure would do this job amazingly. It's just a few notes so that I can concentrate on running the workshop. So Lindsay, you moved first, so that's marvellous. If you don't mind doing that, then we can talk. So
half of them now.
Are you okay? Is everyone okay? If you could perhaps mute yourselves. I think I can do that, but that could all go terribly wrong. I'll let you be in charge of your microphones. So I'm just wondering, for the sake of ease, perhaps one of our librarians could start by describing a library that they would like to see an event in, and a kind of audience that they would like to start off with, just as a conversation point, and we can talk about how we can engage them. Tracy, I think you're saying something?
No, sorry, I just come back to the room. That was.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. So could a librarian describe a library to us that we can all work on and talk about audiences for that library and what they might like to come and see in that space?
I could do that if you like. Yep. We've got quite a variety of libraries, and some have and some haven't had live performance. So I'd quite like to see something maybe in one of our smaller, very community-based libraries. It doesn't have a separate meeting room, so it would be very much amongst the shelves. And maybe something that would draw in people who aren't regular visitors to the library, say for books or coming with their children. So maybe a sort of, say 25 to 40-year-olds or 35-year-olds, try and attract more men in that group as well, but sort of men and women. I'm thinking maybe something like music, comedy, that sort of thing, rather than an author event. We do hold quite a few of those.
Thank you. So a small library, no green room, no meeting space, and you've picked a challenging audience as well. So I'm just going to come quickly to the artists then while we all ponder that. Has anyone toured a show that appeals to 25 to 35-year-olds and men and women who are not usual users of a library, as I understand that? Can we start with someone who's had that experience? No. Ooh, this is very exciting. So of the artists whose brains are whirring right now, do you have any ideas how you might engage that audience in Karen's library?
I could have a throw, because as well as being a storyteller, I have for my sins been a comedy promoter and a long time ago performer. I perform comedy for young people now, but that there is a whole world of dynamic performers that cross the boundaries of comedy and performance art that actually don't really get out of London very often because there aren't networks, but they have renown online. There's a growing audience for more interesting comedy performers, and they do appeal to, so, you know, I regularly go to comedy festivals which are in very far-flung places, and that's the kind of target audience, post 20 really, under 50, but it isn't your 3 white men and a microphone type performer. It's your more interesting, more diverse, more gender diverse, more and it's, I think it's untapped outside of London.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting, because it's the kind of thing that would hopefully attract people that we're not attracting as libraries, but then get them talking about the library and recommending us as a venue and somewhere to go. So that does sound interesting, the diversity of it. And it's a shame that it isn't really being tapped into outside of London.
Sorry, Gav, what was that resource? Who was that you were saying?
I was talking about, there's a whole, my first love really is comedy and stand-up comedy, but I never go to comedy on a Friday or a Saturday night, because that way lies madness. What I do is I go to Machynlleth Comedy Festival, where you can watch incredible performers in a tiny village hall, or watch Stuart Lee in the back of the bowling green with 30 other people. And there's a whole strata of performers who are breaking through now, but that are more interesting, more diverse. There are more women performers. If you go to comedy on a Friday night, Saturday night in a club, you see very few women performers. But if you go to a more interesting festival, you'll see lots. You'll see, lots of people from lots of different backgrounds of religions and colours, and they are out there. But actually, Manchester's quite good for that, but that community doesn't get represented. and they're interesting people that traverse between theatre and comedy, but you have to kind of scratch at it. So if you want to see who these people are, then if you Googled Machynlleth Comedy Festival for the last 10 years, you, as I say, you could have seen Nish Kumar for £3 in the back of, in a school classroom. And I did.
This is great. So a crossover between festivals, is there a crossover between festivals and libraries here that perhaps is underutilized, or we could build on in some way?
I think comedy is underrepresented because we've got you've got your performers who can fill an arts festival, an arts centre, and you know, we could name them. You know, everyone wants to see Mark Thomas, everyone wants to see Daniel Kitson, but you've got those people who have a smaller audience, who are much more interesting, with really interesting stories to tell, that put a show together for Edinburgh and it never goes anywhere. So from Blackpool, who was in your photograph list, lovely performer,
Ruth Coburn.
Yeah, amazing performer, theatre maker, storyteller, but also, of course, part of the comedy. So there's lots of people like that that have these shows. I know, you know, there's lots of faces you'd even recognise on TV who would bite your hand off to tour a show that they did in Edinburgh, which they just love doing, but they don't have outlets for it because they don't have necessarily the power behind them.
So if we go for the comedy in Karen's library, then who out there in our workshop group could help Karen do the marketing or give advice on getting that particular audience in through the door? Do we have anybody who's willing to have a go at throwing in some ideas to that?
I could help connect and suggest, definitely.
Excellent. Talk to each other. We have a thing. This is fantastic. I want to just bring in, I've got one rural touring network, and obviously, Peter, you're a sort of position of working in a strategic role as well as a rural touring role. Comedy in libraries, how would you go about supporting the marketing of that and making Karen's night out and her new audiences the best night out?
Well, I suppose the difficult thing about that sort of comedy audience when you're talking about a library as opposed to a festival is you're instantly talking about a different environment, isn't it? Not somewhere you can necessarily drink, or that sort of small club atmosphere. So I think that's your hardest difficulty, is how you reach those people and get them to transfer their headspace over from that festival vibe into a more sedate atmosphere in a library. That would be my biggest challenge on that audience. And it's probably not an instant win process, is it? I mean, I think there's a degree of trust and everything else in there. But connecting, if there are local comedy clubs or any of those connections that you can tap into, I think a kind of, it's vital on there is how do you reach those people, because it's not necessarily just putting up a few posters in the normal places is not going to reach that audience. So where are they in your community, and how do you start finding and tapping into them would, to me, be the biggest challenge. And that's going to vary for every different building or place, depending on whether it's a little village or, you know, within a city or something, isn't it?
So I can see Lucy has a question. She's also sent it in. Lucy, do you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, well, that was another point, because I have a lot of friends who work on the Machynlleth, like they work on that scene, and they obviously don't get ACE funding, so they have to find other ways of developing themselves. But also, if you have people on that scene, you'll have certain people who follow them, so you'll have a kind of dedicated fan base to link into, and they're not necessarily going to be, if they've got that kind of faith for the person they're following, they're not necessarily going to be obsessed with, I must have a pint in order to go see them. There are people who travel all over the UK to see different comedians like this, and they would book a night in a hotel or something and come over just to see them on that particular route. So I think it's quite a nice way to think, but it might just be looking at the venues and seeing where they're placed and how easy it is for people to get through and far between, and making sure that you really advertise those names and the type of comedian they are if you're looking at that route, because that can draw in a lot of people who might not have heard of them. And yeah, it's getting up on social media and really hitting in, because Twitter and things like that are ideal for that type of, yeah.
So we've got some great ideas about linking people in, but also Lucy, you've touched on another issue, which is about publicly funded touring companies and the comedy circuit being independent. And I know the Arts Council's idea of Arts Council England's idea of excellence probably doesn't include comedy. So as I've got a dance company in here, Joe, do you want to perhaps come in on how you might work in Karen's library and how you might tackle her challenging core audience of the 25 to 35-year-olds as she sees it?
Yeah, so I think I have to sort of hold my hand up and say that I've only been working with Sonia since lockdown, so I've not actually seen any of the work live. But I have worked in dance for many, many years, indoors and outdoors and in all sorts of different spaces. So I think without particularly talking about Sonia's work, obviously the work that we've showcased today is definitely for a family audience, really. But there is plenty of contemporary dance out there, which is small scale, challenging, exciting, that works usually in an outdoor context potentially, but can also work in unusual indoor spaces. And then it would be about reaching out to the dance community, I guess, in that area, and starting there with trying to develop an audience, I think. But there's definitely work out there that would work in a library setting. Yeah.
Has anyone had any experience of dance in a little library? Anyone seen anything or promoted anything, maybe Heather or Peter, that can help with this?
One of the things that I regularly found with dance is the dance community itself. Those, like, you always think, oh, people who do community dance would transfer across, and it regularly seems to fail. I think that's not where you need to tap into, because a lot of those people that do community dance, they love dancing, but they're not that bothered by going to see the work, and there's a different audience. So I think often that's the wrong place.
Yeah, so I was really talking about, so I work with Motion House, is another dance company I work with. They do lots of work across all scales. So yeah, I was talking about, yeah, your audience that would be potentially go and see something, either as it's coming back to festivals, or who maybe know the company already and would go and see them in a theatre, but might also come and see them in a library setting.
So just another question, just to put a little bit of a timescale on this challenge. We know we're all in different situations right now, but mainly it's limited of what we can do in a library. But assuming Karen's library is open to an audience in March, has anyone got any idea of little things that she could be doing, maybe online or through workshops or other activities that might build towards that moment when we can have an audience in a room? Has anyone had any experience of perhaps outreach work or workshops that might work for now in the world that libraries are in? Well, there's a lot of head scratching going on.
So I'm doing some days for Manchester Library Service online. So my show I'm going to do for them, and so I was the person who commented about somebody coming up and telling me to be quiet in the library, to great hilarity, and I think they were anyway. It doesn't matter. So I do work with them, and they're going to be putting on. It's going to be under their banners, but they're going to target audiences. So I'll be doing 4 sessions in a day online, and it'll be targeted to schools. And then I think we'll library users in a particular library. So it's not just tapping into something, it's targeted. So I can say to them, the young people of this school or that particular library. So they're getting a unique storytelling Zoom experience, but under the banner of Manchester Libraries.
That's great. And have you had any indication of how many people have engaged with that? Who your audiences are? Who are your audiences?
Well, we don't have it. We haven't done it yet. But I think what I've said to them is up to them. I think in Zoom things, from my experience as an audience and performer, it's soulless if there's dozens and dozens and dozens, and you're just even no videos. But if it's a small group that can be managed, then people can still feel engaged. So I know that I've done things with classes and the teacher has tipped me off with information. So halfway through, it's one particular story for a school, I was able to say, I'll change it completely. And Leah, you really must stop scratching your nose, whatever it was. And, in the small group of people, there was someone went, ooh. And people, that kind of engagement, because it was targeted. It's not just me doing my thing to a group of people on Zoom, which I do and I'm learning to do. It's targeted as well. So it could be to a group.
That's great. Thank you, Gav. Believe it or not, we've probably got about 3 or 4 minutes. So I know there's some people haven't messaged me or haven't engaged. If you're fine with that, it's fine. If you've got a burning question, but you don't want to speak on video, message me now. You're sending some questions. So has anyone got a question that even yet hasn't been answered in some way, because there might be someone in the room who can do that? So I know people were asking about audiences. Is their library big enough? Hopefully we started tackling that. How do they get work?
So I've got a question. So when you guys do library performances, is that when the library is closed to other people and it's kind of it's a venue and people are paying for their ticket to come in, or is it people were talking earlier about sometimes people just come across the performances almost within the library? Which way round do you do it?
Lindsay?
I'll tackle that one. It's a mixture. So our librarians, and I refer to them as our promoters, so our library promoters can choose. And some of them are really adamant that there is no way they're staying after work to host a show. And others are adamant that there is no way they're interfering with the public while they're using the library, and therefore it would have to be closed in order to use it as a space. And they mix and match, and they do whatever they feel is right for the show that they've got and for the audience that they've got. And it's quite interesting, because I like to play a game to see which one I think is going to do a certain thing, and they always confuse me or baffle me in some way. But like Gav has done a couple of days of installation in libraries during the day while they were open, because it was a children's performance and it was an opportunity to just get walk-ins from various users of those library spaces. Whereas we host a lot of bands on an evening after hours, because it has a different vibe to it. So does that help?
Okay. I think I'm just trying to get my head around it, because the tiny library we have in Appleby, I can't imagine anybody managing to perform in there unless they're literally behind the counter. But obviously we do have some bigger libraries, but not so much in what I would call our normal regular places, rural places. I think we'd be talking about moving up to the sort of towns in the area. And so that's something for us to consider, whether that is our remit, whether that is something we want to go into.
It's worth those conversations with your librarians though, because they see their spaces very differently to how when we walk in we see them. They know exactly what shelving they can move, and even if they've got fixed shelving, they might be prepared to move it for a day for a particular show. So I have some library spaces that you can completely just push all of the shelves back and create a village hall effectively in the size and scope of it. And then I have other library spaces where there's a team of people who all volunteer to move the whopping great big fixed shelves and the entire displays in order to just give us 2 more meters performance space to squeeze in a few more people. So it really does depend on who you're working with and how you're working with them. And as long as you can provide
Hello.
We obviously all just left first. The others haven't come back.
Yeah,
it's
we
still
were
just
obviously
us.
the first group that she did, and now we're all back together again. It's lovely to see you all.
It is. Hello. Have we lost anyone in the way?
Gav, have you been getting a lot of work as Father Christmas? Yeah. You're going to have to explain it to everyone, Gav, because, yeah.
I think you should just leave it out there for us to consider what might be happening.
Oh, here we are. Everyone's
So that's just going to offer further confusion now at this point without any preamble.
Here we are. It's very strange, isn't it? The hiatus. We were talking earlier if we were going to lose anyone in the course of this workshop because they're just bored or fed up or their internet crashed or they wanted a cup of tea. How many have we got back? 27. This is going really well.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool.
And a few who are just listening in, which is fine.
Right. Excellent. So I think first we were going to see if Julia, your group, were going to kind of feedback first.
Yeah, I think Zanny, if you're happy to feed back what we discussed.
Yeah, I'll try and summarise. Well, we ended up turning the question around and saying who is currently not our audience and why might libraries be a place where we can connect with them. So that was our kind of, we turned the question around and asked what is it about a library audience that makes it different from is a difference. We mentioned it was a safe place. People felt it was a safe place to go to, maybe closer to where they live, not a place where you're in the habit of paying. So if you're worried about money, you might think, well, I could go to the library, whereas I couldn't go to a theatre. Things will happen during the daytime, less travelling, and people found even in big cities that they would prefer to go to a library. And the barriers between going to a theatre or a library weren't necessarily geographical. So, and then the question was asked, what can libraries offer to rural touring schemes? And flexible space and intimate space, using the books to create, it's a lovely background. The books can create a nice backdrop. Works well with small audiences, and we're looking at working with small audiences these days. So, and also the fact that there are often other groups that will meet in a library that could be there anywhere, Knit and Natter or Bounce and Rhyme and all those other small audiences. And everybody mentioned how it's always good to, everyone's looking to connect with new audiences, people who wouldn't normally say come to even to a village hall event. And so we talked about what ways we could attract a new audience, email lists, the idea that you can be flexible about dates and times, the fact that you could do something on a Wednesday lunchtime, whereas maybe older people might not feel happy going out in the evening. So there's all that flexibility which village halls might not be able to offer. And also that some librarians, there was a doubt about this, but someone said that librarians actually can be kind of really quite big risk takers, because they have to kind of connect with a really broad range of people. They don't have one particular audience that they're sort of trying to hang on to, so that in a way they can be quite liberating working with librarians. But it's also still about audience building. Even libraries aren't a kind of ready-made audience, because you know, people cannot turn up to library gigs as well as they can not turn up to village halls. And then it was talked about how libraries really like wraparound events. They mentioned a librarian who loves dressing up as a suffragette, who will also produce a book list and connecting with the books which are there, and they notice the difference between the librarians who just leave out leaflets and those that actually talk and engage people. It's very often down to the personality of the librarian. So we talked about communication, about connecting with all the groups that are there, writing groups, and also lastly, we didn't quite answer this question, the idea that the actual event in a library can also then signpost people onto other services which might be really valuable for them. So it's a sort of, hopefully there's a two-way flow.
Excellent, thanks Annie, that's really cool. My group, Jess, you volunteered for us.
Hello everyone. Okay, gosh, yeah, everyone sounds like they've covered lots of things. So we started by looking and talking about the space, the quality of performances and the experience of that. And what came up in our conversation was this fear of underselling the professionalism of shows by not charging a price that reflects the value of that show. So we talked quite a bit about different ways of pricing shows. That could be through ticket splits. We talked about offering the opportunity to pay what you feel. One person in our group actually said that there's some research that has gone into looking at asking people to pay what they feel, and it was very positive. It actually turned out that people do end up paying maybe more than they would if you'd set a price. So there's lots of different conversations about how that can be done, and I know from talking to lots of libraries and artists that hopefully through our project we can share some of those different ideas and structures, but it's about working out what works for you. I think that was what's coming out of our conversation. It was also about, again, back to the value, and also changing perceptions of where you see quality high professional arts. So there's often a response from audiences seeing things in libraries that they're surprised to see something that's so well produced and so professional. So actually we want to get away, and I think if you have more performances in libraries, then maybe we can change the perception that the best stuff is always in a theatre space or a black box space. We talked about the appeal of taking work into libraries, and the feeling was it was the unexpected in lots of ways, the response from audiences and who those audiences are. So someone said that they were surprised to see teenagers, which they very rarely see in their shows.